I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of Winona. Today we're going to find out about one of Winona's largest and finest musical instruments, the historical steam Calliope. We're going to learn about its history, and we'll talk with the two men who bring this part of our river heritage to life. This is Ed Moss, who is actually a piano tuner in town, and he's also the one that gets the Calliope going, started, and operating. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, tell me first of all the history of the Calliopes. When did they get started?
Well, they were first invented in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1849, and they didn't come into their popularity till the riverboat era, about in the 60s, and then, of course, disappeared for a while and became part of the circus era in the early 20s. And many of the Calliopes were taken off of riverboats, revamped, put on the circus van. And of course announced the arrival of the circuses as well as prior to that with the riverboat.
Okay, whoever got the idea and how did they start putting pipes together to make sounds?
Well, it was a promotional thing on the riverboats to announce the showboats coming into each river town along the circuit. And it was a big enterprise back in those days. Okay. And that was the sole reason. Uh-huh. And of course, it lent well to the type of show that was put on. It got people in the mood.
The tradition of playing the Calliope to announce the arrival or departure of the three famous steamboats on the Mississippi River is still continued today. The largest steam Calliope is on the Mississippi Queen with 44 whistles. The American Queen's Calliope has 32 whistles and is played up and down the Mississippi by Chris Baum.
It's smaller than the one on the Mississippi Queen, and when we open it up, I'll figure out how many keys are on it. But it doesn't have as much pressure, and so it takes longer for the notes to actually react when you play them. It takes when you first turn the thing on, it takes about 3 seconds. But when it's fully warmed up, the upper register reacts pretty fast, but the lower register still it takes a while. So you have to play everything more slowly than you normally would.
What's the difference between the Calliope on the steamboat and a Calliope that you'd have in parades?
The ones on the steamboats are usually called Calliopes, and the ones that are in circuses and parades are called Calliopes. And for the reason for that, I don't know. But that's just part of the strange history of this instrument. So.
Now, Calliopes were designed for steamboats, like coming into town to excite the people about coming down to the waterfront and seeing it come in. Mm-hmm. Do you still play it with that in mind?
Yeah, we usually play it when we leave a port rather than when we enter a port because sometimes we do both, but we always do it when we leave. But I know it was for reasons for marketing. They could hear them for a long way, and that's one reason why they did it when they came in, so people would know that the boats were coming.
As the American Queen riverboat pulls out of the locks at Tremplow Dam, we hear the Calliope playing its tune for exactly the purpose it was intended for. Chris has allowed Winona's musician Dan Barr a chance to play up the lazy river. The patent for the invention of the steam Calliope went to Joshua Stoddard of Worcester, Massachusetts in 1855 for an instrument producing music by passing steam or compressed air through steam whistles. In 1858, a steam Calliope was first fitted on a steamboat. It had 15 steam whistles. In their heyday, there were over 9,000 Calliopes on steamboats. The 32 steam whistles we see today on the American Queen get their power from siphoned off steam from the engine.
How does the steam Calliope work?
Well, it's driven by steam pressure, about 100 pounds. And of course that gives quite a tremendous clap on the bells. The steam pressure actually is like a hammer, and it rings the bell. If you fire something up as right, a boiler. It holds about 100 gallons of water, and we use coal and wood. It takes an hour from the time we start the fire, till it'll raise enough steam so that we can perform. And there's a lot of preparation. They have to clean the flues before almost every event, depending how long we run. And the downtime too, it has to be cooled down. It takes about an hour to cool it down, pull the ash out. Once the pressure is up, after you've started a fire and you've got this 100 pounds of pressure, there's a valving system that regulates like 45 pounds of pressure to the whistles themselves. They're loud as it is, and it would be tremendously loud if there weren't a pressure regulator ahead of the steam valve. The whistle is activated by a valve, which is attached to a rod or lever that Eric plays on the keyboard. And there's 32 keys on this keyboard. And it's very simple. Anyway, this particular design is very simple. Now the later models are more technical. They play easier and they have a different sound. But this has the original Calliope sound.
What do you have to do to keep it in tune?
Well, once it's in tune and the valves are repaired, which is what we did through the years, repair the facings of the valves so they don't leak or cipher or make sound before they're played. Once that's done, the tuning itself stays pretty much constant.
How many towns have a Calliope like this?
Well, I don't know of any, really.
Really?
I know there's some around Canada,
Uh-huh.
and there are towns that have some like this, but not this original. They're automated. They're oil fired, and the water automated with feeding the water, that sort of thing. Where here it's all done with valves by hand, and of course pitching the coal in there, that kind of thing.
Once you get the boiler full and the thing is playing, how long will it play on one load of coal?
Well, we carry about 450 pounds back on the bunkers.
Okay.
So, and about 210, 20 gallons of water. So we can go about 4 hours. Winona Calliope came to Winona in 1959. And the Calliope here in Winona, which is owned by the Wilkie Foundation, is on land lease to Winona. And it's a later version of the steam Calliope. This Calliope is a circus Calliope solely. It never was taken off the riverboat. It's a modern version, and we're fortunate to have it because it has the brass whistle and it has a nice sweet sound. When the season is over, they call this unit right here a handhold plate. It has to be detached. There's another one there. There's two on each side, one in front, and they have to be taken out, and the boiler has to be flushed out and cleaned because of the impurities in the water throughout the season and sludge or whatever you want to call it, sludge. So it has to be flushed out, and I oil it down so it's preserved for the winter, so keep the deterioration at its minimum.
Okay. Ed, where do you store this machine?
In the city garage of Winona.
Currently you have an old truck pulling this, but normally you have horses, right?
Yes.
Tell me about them.
Well, the horses are conditioned to stand the noise, if you will. To them it's noise. And we use four. They're four Belgians, two mares, mom and a daughter, and they're registered. And we have two geldings up front. And that's about what it takes to pull the whole unit with the bandwagon and 5-6 guys on the wagon, plus all our coal, water, and a guy up on top, a fellow on top, our coachman, and myself. And it's a load for them, but they seem to enjoy it. You need a big horse to pull a big load. And they're very intelligent. They lend well to the situation. They're not real nervous. They love people. They'd like to stop and let people come out and pet them rather than parade. And that's what you need. You know, you can't have things too jumpy or the horses too nervous. And we've been very lucky. We're on our second set of horses on this Calliope here. And both sets did us well. We really didn't have any problems so far that we can feel bad about.
How did that horses handle the loud noise of the Calliope?
Well, some at first we have to be cautious with them. Like put a bale of hay on a wagon and slowly bring it up while Eric's playing. pretty soon we got them right up close to the Calliope, and they sort of relax. And I think in the end they really enjoy it. I think it's soothing to them.
This is Eric Hoykesoven, who you've probably seen throughout Winona playing various musical instruments. He's a very talented person and picked up right away playing this Calliope. Hi, Eric. Tell me how you really got involved with this.
It's a short story. I had substituted for Denny Martin once in one of the Winona State homecoming parades a couple of years before Denny passed away, and it was just a tremendous pleasure to go and do that. And I found out, first of all, how much work the man was putting into it when he played it. I got a call the weekend that he passed on from Ed Moss. He calling and he said, well, we had a meeting today, and on behalf of the city and the Calliope Foundation, we'd like you to be our player. And I think I thought about that for maybe 10 seconds before I said, fantastic, I would love to do it. And that was, I think, 7 years ago now. So I've been doing it for quite some time.
Do you play it similar to a piano?
Well, the keyboard is the same as a piano. I think it would be if you're going to compare it to an instrument, probably an organ would be a closer comparison. It is really a steam organ. When you press the keys and hold them, the note will last as long as you hold them down, whereas with a piano it decays after a while. That's where the similarities end, however. On an organ or on a piano, you simply press the keys, and on a Calliope, especially a Calliope that has a mechanical action like ours, you hit the keys. There's no nice way to say it. You just have to hit them and hold them down hard. You're actually letting that 80 pounds of pressure escape through the valve, and so you're fighting that pressure all the time. I've taken to wearing some wrist splints and a couple sets of hearing protection.
Tell me what it was like for you and what it's still like for you playing such a part of history.
That's probably the most interesting and the most compelling aspect of this. I play piano all the time, and I play trombone, I play euphonium, I write music, but nothing else to me comes close to the connection with history that this thing has. The hat that I'm wearing was actually handed down to me by one of the former Calliope players, who was coincidentally the Christian brother who started the music department at St. Mary's University, and Brother Lawrence Walther, and he died just a year ago. And on one of his birthdays, he brought this hat in to me, and he said, now that you're the Calliope player, I want you to have this, but it's not yours to keep. And I said, I understand. So, someday, hopefully with time and hopefully with some dignity, I'll hand this down to whoever is the next Calliope player.
Now when the steam Calliope plays in Winona, I mean, you have to really sit back because it is loud and you know it's coming.
Yes, it is.
Tell me about the loudness of it.
I found laying in my basement, I knew I had a meter that could measure sound pressure, and you measure it in what's called decibels. And I brought it into the cabin a couple years ago, and we're up over 100 decibels, probably around 104, which for an unamplified instrument, that's as loud as a rock band, and a soft rock band probably. But the whole idea of the Calliope was, in the days before there was even telegraph or certainly television radio, the Calliope would be unloaded from the circus train. It would be driven into town playing, much like we're doing at Victorian Fair, to get interest in the community that, hey, something's going on.
try to play historical tunes that would be conducive to this type of an instrument?
I do. Although I will confess, when we passed the YMCA this morning, I broke into the Village People's YMCA just on a lark. But I try to play things that came from the era. We know that the Calliope, this unit probably was built or restored in the 30s, 40s, around there, and and that happens to be a favorite time of music for me. Tin Pan Alley, kind of a boom chick kind of thing. Dixieland works enormously well, and of course when we're in parades with the Calliope band, which is essentially just a Dixieland band, that's what we do.
Normal that a band would play with a Calliope?
I don't think so. It's pretty abnormal and extremely unusual. I think it adds an element that it lets you stretch out a little bit more with the music. And by adding the drums and by adding a bass instrument, in our case a tuba, the Calliope player doesn't have to work quite as hard. And we actually play it like we would be on the bandstand where they take solos, even though I can't see them. I have a monitor that's down by my knees, and I can sort of hear and feel the drummer and the lower instruments.
There are two 1920s Dodge delivery trucks that we generally see riding along or pulling the Calliope in the parades. Both of these trucks were owned by Ed's father, who owned a hardware store in Rolling Stone. He used them for hauling merchandise, and when he sold the business to his partner, he received one of the trucks in payment and the other he bought for parts to keep it running. Both have been overhauled by Ed and kept in mint condition to add to the attraction of the Calliope experience.
It also led the horses through the parade, and they're accustomed to it. They actually start and stop when the truck does, because it's up front, and sometimes they put their heads in back. You know, we don't get coordinated. But it's been a very useful part of the Calliope. I use it to back the Calliope in position in the city garage. I can use it to pull the Calliope into position before we hitch the horses. So we're mobile. We don't have to depend on an outside vehicle on site. So yeah, it did become a necessity, really.
Okay. So this truck actually is very, very special to you then. It was your father's truck.
Yeah, my father's truck, and I learned to drive with this truck along with the rest of the family, my sister, yes.
Okay. All right, so tell me what it's like for you pulling the steam Calliope with your father's truck.
Well, it's first of all, it's a privilege, and it's an attention getter. You get many waves, smiles, and sometimes they're awestruck. Mm-hmm. Can't believe that this type of vehicle is pulling that, okay. Pulling the Calliope.
Does it bring you a little closer to your dad?
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a memorial to my father and mom, yeah.
Tell me about some of the parades you take the Calliope to.
Well, in addition to doing the local parades, Winona Steamboat Days, Goodview Days, Rochester Fest, and other area parades, we have for the last 7 or 8 years now gone to New Orleans and played in the Mardi Gras parades. We play in the largest night parade, which is the Endymion Parade, and there's nothing to compare to that, really. I mean, you're playing for millions of people on this parade route, and it's really incredible.
Instrument for Winona because we have such a Mississippi heritage.
I agree.
And this instrument is perfect for it. Tell me what it's like playing it.
Well, it's an absolute thrill. You know, I know that there are very few of these in existence. With the parade that I mentioned in Peru, Indiana a few years ago, we met a man who rebuilds these for a living, and he was fairly certain that there's maybe a dozen that still are intact. And he told me that a number of them have been modified to play on a player piano type of mechanism. So there aren't that many human players out there, at least none that I've come in contact with. I do know the person that plays on the Julia Bell, and I've met the people that play on the Queens, and quite often they're just part-time, and obviously this is a part-time job for me. I think we all do it out of a sense of respect and trying to keep this going as long as we possibly can, because it is so unique. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but I wouldn't give it up for the world.
We are fortunate indeed to have this wonderful part of our Mississippi River heritage being preserved by these two caring, talented men. This has been Joyce Woodworth. Please join me again next week. Till then, enjoy the spirit of Winona and keep on smiling.